Okay, so I'm back to work on my workshop, and so far I have turned this into this. And that means that I have made and installed shutters, I have painted my front door, and I have installed a keypad door lock on the front door right here. So next up I want to build, or I want to attach, add, whatever you want to say, skirting around the bottom of the building. Right now it's just wide open, animals can get under there, and it does not have a very finished look. So I'm hoping that the skirting is going to really finish off the look. I'm not quite sure. I think this is going to be an easy project, but I could be very wrong. I've never done this before. So here I go. There's an 11-inch space all the way around the building that I need to cover with skirting. And before I did that, I needed to measure and mark where I wanted my front steps to go. I wanted my steps to go kind of wide past the door, and so I marked off 16 inches on either side of the door. I didn't want to put skirting behind the steps because that's just a waste of material. Once I had the area marked off for the front steps, I was ready to measure for the skirting. I measured from the corner of the building right up to that mark that I just made, and I used that measurement to cut the pieces, not only the skirting, but also this 1x2 transition piece that I wanted to use. I decided to use this transition piece just because I thought it would look so much better than just having the skirting right up against the siding. So I cut the 1x2 with a miter corner on the end, and then I just nailed it into place using 2.5-inch nails. And then I was ready to cut the boards for the skirting. I'm using 1x6 PVC boards. And the reason I'm using PVC is because I needed something that was safe for ground contact. And there's just not a lot of materials out there that will work with ground contact. But we know that PVC boards will because our plumbing pipes are made of PVC. And so if it's good enough for plumbing, then it's good enough for skirting. So I needed 2 boards. I was going to run them horizontally, and I needed to attach them to each other. So I used my Craig pocket hole jig to drill holes in one of the boards, and I did the holes about 12 inches apart. Once my pocket holes were drilled, I was ready to assemble the 2 boards to each other. I used PVC glue on the edge of both boards, and I had to work very quickly because this glue dries very fast, but you want it to be pretty wet when you put the boards together. And then I used Craig screws, and I made sure to use the ones that were labeled for exterior use. Okay, so I have the first piece put together, and now I have to figure out how to get it attached because that's 11 inches tall, and now I only have 10.25 inches between the bottom of that transition piece and the ground. Okay, and the crazy thing is, since we don't have a yard, well, I mean, we have a yard. We don't have any landscaping. I've never bought any landscaping tools, so I don't really have anything to dig in the ground with. I'm gonna have to get creative here. We'll see what I can find. Didn't really take a whole lot of creativity. I learned very quickly that a hammer works just fine to dig a little trench in the ground. It worked perfectly for this side, but later I realized that I needed much deeper trenches on the other sides, and a hammer would not do for that, especially in the mud that I was dealing with. It just kept caking up on the hammer. But for this side, it worked just fine. I was finally able to get enough dirt out in order to have the board fit just perfectly. And don't worry about Tiger, he's fine. He likes to explore under there, but there's plenty of space to get out for now. With the little trench dug out, I was finally able to stand the board up and nail it into place. Take a look at the difference that this skirting board makes. This is going to look fantastic. Okay, I just finished up the second side on the front of the workshop, and it looks pretty good. So let me show you how it turned out. Okay, so here's what it's looking like so far. I love it. Now, my plan was to keep it white, and now I'm not so sure. I might want to paint it the gray, but I'll make that decision later. Anyway, so remember that in this opening here, that is where I'll build the steps. I like wide steps. It'll give me a little place to put, a pot. There's my very dirty hands. To put a little potted plant on each side. So anyway, that's what it's looking like so far. And now I have to do the back side. Okay, so this is going to be a bit of a challenge because this is 27 feet long. My boards are 12 feet long. And I just don't know that I want a vertical seam or joint, a vertical joint on both boards. So I'm not quite sure how to do that. I'll figure out something. While I was deciding how to do the skirting boards on this side, on this long 27-foot side of the building, I had to go ahead and install the transition piece, this ledger board. And the side, being 27 feet, was going to require over 2 pieces of 12 foot. So I cut where the two would meet. I cut them at this 45-degree angle, and that really helps to hide the joint. It fits together so much better if you do that rather than just leaving them as straight cuts. You can tell how that hides, and then you can go back and just put one nail through both of them to hold that joint together. Well, I have officially run out of daylight, but I've decided to put the entire 27-foot skirting together for the back side of the building, right there, to put the whole thing together before putting it on the building. And the reason is because I want to stagger these joints. So what I've done is I started with the top row, and I put a whole 12-foot board right in the middle on the top row. And then on either side, that left me 7.5 feet there and 7.5 feet here. And then I staggered the bottom row. So now you can see that I started right in the middle. I made a mark right there. I made a mark in the middle of the top 12-foot board, and then I staggered the joint. So this is a 12-foot board to here, and then I had to do it 1.5 feet on the end. And then same going the other direction from the center. Here's a 12-foot board, and then 1.5 on the end. So the challenge is going to be getting this thing put together and then dragging it over there because it's going to be heavy, but I think I can do it. In order to put this long 27-foot piece together, I first marked off where I wanted my pocket holes. And on this one, I had to remember not only to put the pocket holes from the top row to the bottom row, but I also had to use pocket holes to join the ends of boards together, the ones that met end to end. So I actually left out a couple, and I had to go back and kind of do the best I could at putting screws in without pocket holes because the thing had already been assembled. But if you can remember to do that ahead of time, it'd be so much easier. So I marked where all the pocket holes needed to go, and then of course I drilled all the pocket holes, And this really didn't take a lot of time. I thought that it would, but it didn't. It went pretty fast. Putting this one together really was a little bit more challenging just because of that PVC glue. It has to be wet when you put the two boards together, and the stuff just dries so quickly. I don't know, maybe I'm using the wrong brand. I don't really use PVC glue a lot, and so I don't know what the best brand is, but I just seem to be having trouble with it drying too quickly. But I did put on a very liberal amount so that I could get the things screwed together before it dried, I think. I may have had a few dry spots, but I think for the most part, it worked pretty well. Once I had it put together, I realized I had no idea how to move this thing. It's so long, so bendy, and I didn't want to drag it because it would just scratch the surface or the face of the boards. So I decided to use my furniture dolly and place one end on the dolly and then pick up the other end and drag it into place. I was kind of surprised, but it actually worked. Well, I managed to get that over here in one piece, but I'm still going to have to dig the little trench. So that is where I have to leave it for the night. Good morning, y'all. Okay, so it's, 7:15 in the morning. And I have not been able to sleep since 4:20 because I have all these ideas and my brain just will not shut off. So anyway, I'm out here at 7:20. You can see it's raining today. It's not raining so much right now, but it's supposed to rain more later. So I thought that I would come out here and kneel down in this mud and try to dig this trench for this board to go into. So we'll see how that goes. So I worked until probably 8 last night, but it gets dark at 5:30 right now, and I got the entire board. There's my kitty, my outdoor kitty. This is a stray cat that loves me so much. Okay, loves the food that I provide. Anyway, so I got the long 27-foot skirting board put together, and now I've got to dig the trench that this thing can go into. So here goes. While I wasn't thrilled about kneeling in the mud and having to dig in mud, I think it made it easier. The ground was so much softer. But yeah, it was messy. Look at this. I mean, it's just so muddy. I should have waited to bring my board over, obviously. But at least it's plastic. It's PVC. So, and I don't really care what the back side looks like. The front side will wash off very easily. Okay, now I have to set it up. And once again, I had no idea how I was going to get this board up and into place because these boards are just so bendy. Once I would get one side in place, the other side would fall out, and then the whole thing would fall over, and it just happened over and over again. So you can see me just kind of standing there contemplating what the heck to do because I had no idea. But I finally realized the solution is pretty simple. I just needed a cinder block to hold it in place. With the cinder block holding it up in the middle, it just made the process very easy. I still had to walk from end to end to make sure that the board was centered and in the right spot. I used my rubber mallet in order to tap it over just a little bit, and then I was finally able to nail it into place. I used my pry bar to raise it up in areas where it needed to be raised up right underneath that ledger board to get a really good and tight fit. This was such a messy process. I couldn't believe how that mud was just caking on my shoes. And every time I would step on the concrete, it was like stepping onto an ice skating rink. I almost fell a couple of times. I don't know if you can tell, but that would have been really embarrassing. Well, that was ridiculously messy, but I got it done just in time because it is starting to rain. Hopefully the rain will wash off some of that mud. It looks awful right now, but once it's all cleaned up, it'll be pretty. I hate that I didn't get this finished and caulked before the rain, because I need to caulk right here where the siding meets that transition piece. Okay, so the rain is coming down. I still have to do this side. The rain is only supposed to last for this morning, so hopefully I can get out here this afternoon and finish that. And then I have to finish these two sides here on either side of the door. Okay, it's really starting to rain now, so I'm gonna go inside until the rain passes. Yep, I just missed the rain. It's supposed to be sunshine this afternoon, so we'll see. Okay, so the rain has passed and the sun is out, and I'm gonna try to finish at least this side of the skirting. I don't think I'll be able to finish the whole thing today because the other side is 18 feet, and that's gonna be another pretty big project. But I can at least get these little areas finished today. So this process is gonna be just like I did on the front and the back, except that I'm first gonna have to shovel out this area, and then I'm gonna have to cut off that cardboard. That's what they put up in order to pour this concrete, and that is right in my way. So I'm gonna have to cut that cardboard using my Dremel Multimax, and then of course on the side it's gonna have to cover all the way to the edge of this board. So here we go. Obviously, I know the difference between plywood and cardboard, usually. I think I was just so tired, y'all. I had been up since 4 o'clock, and so I was kind of running on adrenaline and just sheer determination because I wanted to get this done. But I did use my Dremel Multimax, which is one of my favorite tools. I highly recommend this tool if you don't have one. It comes in handy for so many different things. And I just cut away that plywood, not cardboard, so that I could put the skirting board there. Y'all, it is so muddy out here. I feel like my shoes weigh about 2 pounds each. Look at all that. Oh my goodness. Doing the side was exactly like doing the other sides, with one exception. I had to kind of chip away a little bit of the concrete because it wasn't even, it was a little bit jagged, and I couldn't get the board right up next to it. It left a gap, and it was a gap that was big enough for, I don't know, at least a mouse to get through there. And that is not what I want. So after a little digging for the trench and then chipping away at some concrete, I finally got this side done. And here's what it looked like when it was finished. It's not perfect, especially right up against that ramp, but I think it'll do, and I'll just fill in the rest of that with caulk. Okay, y'all, it's about 6:30, and I was gonna wrap it up for the evening, but I really wanna get this backside done. So I am out here once again with my jackery and my light, and I'm gonna see if I can get it done. My jackery is probably one of my favorite recent purchases. This thing is so handy. I take it all over our property and plug in lights and everything, and I don't even have to worry about extension cords or anything like that. It's just an amazing thing to have. And of course, I had to start with a trench. I had so much trouble with this side, I couldn't believe what trouble I had. I didn't show the whole process because that's just boring, but I had to dig out this side probably 3 or 4 times. I just could not get the board to fit. But I finally got it all dug out, and then I was able to proceed with the rest of the process. Once I got the trench dug out, the rest of it went fairly quickly, but this side, it was such a problem. I was sure hoping that it would be easy because it was my last, but it was the hardest, of course. Y'all, I actually finished. I cannot believe, I think it's 9 o'clock, and I am exhausted. I'm covered in mud. I'm cold, but it is done. So let me show you how it turned out. Okay, so here is the back side, the final side that I had to do. And I thought I was never going to get that dug out enough right there, but I finally did. And you might notice that on these corners, I had to add little pieces because I forgot to add the 3/4 inch on each side to cover the end of those boards. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to come back and I am going to put some trim pieces on the ends there. It's going to be like this, but I'm not going to do that tonight. It's 9 o'clock. I generally don't like to use my tools outside past 8 o'clock, so I'm an hour behind. Anyway, I'm done for the night. Well, I have daylight again, and so I'm here to put the final touches of trim on my skirting. And I'm just going to kind of match this, except I'm going to use 1x2s. So I'll put this one here. I'll have to dig out a little bit. And then this one here to cover up all of that. And here's what that looks like finished. It's not perfect. And it will still need to be caulked. But I think it looks a lot better than those raw edges. And it still needs to be caulked and painted. And here is how the skirting turned out. I absolutely love it. Of course, it's not caulked or painted yet. I'm going to wait to do that until I build the steps. The steps are going to look like our front steps on our house that have white risers and then stained wood steps. So I'm just going to wait and do that all at once. Do all of the caulking and the painting at once. But I love how this turned out. There's the corners with the trim. I think that just added so much. It just added a final finishing detail. And I'll show you the back side. Of course, this is what I did when it was raining and so muddy. I cleaned it off as best I could with a broom, but it's still very dirty. So it'll need to be cleaned before I paint it. And then here is the back side. Actually it's the side. I call it the back side because it faces the back of our property. But anyway, that's it. The skirting is installed. Okay, that's 4 projects down, and the next project is to build the front steps.
Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the little bell next to it so you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. And of course, you can always find me and my latest projects over on addicted2decorating.com. See you next time.